Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about traffic safety. Why people don't care, drivers don't care. We continue to participate in social driving, running stop signs, traffic flow, those types of things. And that traffic crashes are, what are they, number 4, number 3 on the top risks of things that potentially could injure you. So today we're going to talk about that. Stick around. We'll be right back with that story. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test. Let me know in the comments. The question for today is, why do you think that people don't care about traffic safety? Why they don't care about traffic crashes? I have some theories of my own. I can kind of go over history of traffic for you and people driving and using roads to move themselves, services, freight, people, those types of things and whatnot. But I would like to hear from you today, and if you're watching on the replay as well, let us know in the comments down below what you think the reasons are for traffic safety and why we don't care. So, a few things today, just kind of fun Friday, hanging around, talking and seeing what we can come up with and see if we can make the world a better place. Hopefully nobody's drinking Lysol. It's not good for you. Don't do that. Somebody did say that, and I did hear something on Facebook this morning. I did see something on Facebook, but I didn't see the news comment or what Trump was saying now. So yeah, interesting, and I'm sure Facebook and other social media is going to light up with all kinds of interesting, funny bits about that. Hopefully maybe Facebook will be funny again. So. Let's hope so. Because, it's not worth going on Facebook and scrolling down through your feed if it's not funny. It needs to be funny. Facebook should be funny. So, yeah, let us know what you think. So, Ryan is here. Corey is here from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Frederick is here from Denmark. Frederick, I did get your email, and I will respond here later today. Just got wrapped up with the kids and doing homeschooling and those types of things. And learning new recipes, as I think everybody is during COVID-19 and at home, learning new recipes. I actually learned how to caramelize onions yesterday, and there's a movie, and I cannot remember it. There was a torture scene in it, and they said, "We're going to caramelize your onions," and I never understood what that line meant. Now I know what it means. You cook them for a very, very long time, probably half an hour, 40 minutes. So, Anna, hi, can you tell me your email address slowly, LOS, so I write it down? Thanks. Here, Anna, I'll just type it out for you, and that'll make it easier for you. There you go. Rick at smartdrivetest.com. And that'll get me an email, Anna, and I'll be able to help you out. Eric is here. G'day, 63 degrees here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is the Twin City there in Minnesota. Great place. Thanks, Frederick, and thank you for your compliment. That was exceptional. I'm really glad that this is helping out. One of the other things, and I would appreciate your feedback here on the live stream. Appreciate your feedback if you're watching on the replay as well. I was watching one of the videos by Tim Schmoyer yesterday. Tim Schmoyer is one of the top YouTubers on how to do YouTube and how to build your YouTube channel. And I appreciated his video yesterday on I appreciated his candor. And he was talking about your YouTube channel not growing. And my YouTube channel is not growing. I mean, it has been stagnant for some time. And two reasons he talked about it, the reasons for your YouTube channel not growing are, you have a dozen older videos that are getting the majority of your views, and because those older videos are getting views and the newer ones are not, perhaps you're stagnant and that you need to pivot. You need to change up your content. You need to figure out how to better deliver your content, how to be more interesting. These videos, these talking head videos, are, some people say, they're not attractive to the audience, and I can see that in the numbers. I can see that in my competition. My competition delivers a very different product with information. It's this very short, truncated information that's not detailed, and it's a very high level information. I don't believe that you can learn at a very high level. There is some stuff that you can get at a very high level, and some people are able to do that. But for the most part, when you're learning to do something, you need to dive in. You need to delve into, have a deeper appreciation of a topic and those types of things. So I would be interested to hear what you have to say in the comments and here on the live stream, and how we can make Smart Drive Test a bigger channel, so that we can reach more people and help them to be safer, smarter drivers. And that's just something I would put out there to give me a hand, figure out how we can do this, how we can move this forward, and how we can make the channel great and help more people. Anna, you're most welcome. Ben is tuning in from Paris. Paris is 20H04. Ben, I'm not sure what 20H04 is. Maybe there's a typo there. I don't know what that is. Can you explain that? Sorry. I haven't been sleeping the last couple of days because my back is really bothering me and it's precluding me from sleeping. And, just it is what it is. So I just need to get up in the middle of the night and work instead of sitting there feeling my leg throbbing. So let's talk briefly about traffic safety history. just to make the world an interesting place. People think and I've had comments during presentations and talking about traffic safety and those kinds of things, and I've had comments from people who say, "Oh well, we just need to go back to the horse and buggy," which always makes me chuckle, because it shows the sheer ignorance of horses, for one thing. Does anybody here watching on the live version of this, or anybody watching on the replay, know anything about horses that you could tell me about horses and why we so quickly abandoned the horse to move to motor cars? I can tell you a few things. The first thing that I'll tell you about horses is that there is a reason that in most places in North America, most places in the United States of America, and most places in Europe, most towns and villages are 30 miles apart, or 20 to 30 miles apart. And the reason that they're 20 to 30 miles apart is because that is the maximum distance that a horse can travel in a day. And this is, it influenced, this limitation of the horse is one of the things that influenced the development of horses and where people settled and those types of things. So, Eric says, time for an espresso or Mountain Dew for you. Yes, it is, definitely. Ben, it's 8:07 p.m. Oh, okay, there we go. Thanks, Ben, for clarifying that. Okay, so 20th hour, the 4th minute. There we go. Okay, so I'm on board now, Ben. I'll get that in the future. Thanks for clarifying that. And, yep, so we've been getting back at our French, too. So, brilliant. Okay. So the maximum distance that horses travel in a day is 20 to 30 miles, and this is why many towns and villages in all over the world are 20 to 30 miles apart, because that's the maximum distance. Joseph, hello. Eric, the Amish still use them for pulling their buggies. Eric, yes, they do, and my mom lives in Wingham, Ontario, and Wingham, Ontario is still has a Mennonite community, and when you drive there, and actually there's a video that I did at my mom's, slow moving vehicles. I did that, and it was in a farm community, and there are horse and buggies in there, and horse and buggies, when traveling along roadways, will have the slow moving sign on the back of the horse and buggy. So, Ryan, do you know when was the driving rules of today created? Wheelman's here. Hello, my friend from Portugal. The road rules of today, Ryan, all started in the 19th century. I had a look at those when I was doing my dissertation, and I had to go back all the way to the beginning of the 19th century, so the beginning of the 1800s. Before that, there were some road rules and legislation around road rules, but for the most part, they came up through the 19th century, and basically driving on the right side of the road or driving on the left side of the road. All of this applied to horse and buggy, and essentially the work that I did when I was doing my graduate degree was looking at this legislation and seeing how it was applied to motor cars. One of the things that you did not have an issue with that came about with the motor car was speed and speeding. Actually, it didn't come about with the motor car first. Sorry. It first came about with the bicycle. Bicycles were first known as hobby horses, which were basically bicycles without pedals on them, and they just pushed them around. Why the first prototypes of the bicycle did not catch on is because they hadn't invented the rubber tire yet, the pneumatic tire that was filled with air. The pneumatic tire was invented in 1880 in Ireland. Trying to remember his name. John something. He's a tire brand. Bridgestone? No, not Bridgestone. Anyway, it'll come to me. He invented the pneumatic tire for the bicycle for his son to give him a better ride. The bicycle caught on, and within a very short time, within 20 years after that, the motor car had been invented. I believe, as a historian, that if there had been more time before the bicycle and the motor car, I think the bicycle would be much, much more utilized than it is. But unfortunately, it didn't. The motor car came right on the heels of the bicycle, the invention of the bicycle and the adoption of pneumatic tires, as we call it, tires with airs in them, and just made it so much easier to ride those. And Wheelman, Portuguese breed of horse, real alters, famous worldwide, Arabian and Lusitania bloodlines. Yes, great horses. And anybody who works with horses knows horses. Horses are ornery, and they take a lot of time to train. Other people, yes, John Dunlop. Thank you, Tim. My mate Tim from Drive Smart BC. Yes, John Dunlop invented the pneumatic tire in the 1880s and adopted it to the bicycle for his kid, and that was the reason that bicycles took off. And bicycles were the first to implement speeding on city streets. People were all afraid of bicycles, not only because of the speed of them, but also because they were quiet and stealthy. And so there was a resistance and reluctance to bicycles, and it was seen that young males, which always seem to take the brunt of, antisocial behavior, especially on our roadways and riding bicycles and those types of things. So traffic safety has been a concern for some time. Now, going back to the horse, the other thing about horses that a lot of people don't know is that you can't just lock a horse up in a paddock and leave it there indefinitely. Horses have to be exercised, and they have to be ridden every day. Every day. And now they have pedal cabs in certain cities. Yes, they do, Eric. And the other thing about bicycles, if you go to Beijing or you go to Shanghai, in China, many of these bicycles, tricycles, they're still using these. And when I was in Shanghai in the early 2000s, it was incredible. Some of the loads that they were putting on some of these tricycles, it was amazing. Like 5-gallon jugs of water, they got like 15 of them on the back, which is just an incredible load. Jaden, my dad are probably GTA, and I accidentally beached my boat. Oh no. Yeah, Jaden, you have a string of bad luck there. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Joseph, where do I live? I am in Canada on the West Coast. So that's where I live. All right. So people say, well, we need to go back to horses. So the first thing about horses is that you need an infrastructure. There was an infrastructure in place, livery stables where the horses could be stabled if you had to go into town or do something and those types of things. Wheelman, in the past it was a child's dream to have a horse. Now barely anyone cares. And it was everybody's dream to have a horse. And the other thing, Wheelman, that a lot of people, that movies and Hollywood and those types of things, many people think that people just went out to the back barn and got their horse out and went for a ride on their horse. And that was not the case at all. The only people that had a horse for personal transportation were the very wealthy within society. Most horses in cities, most horses in countries, they were work horses. They were not horses you got on and rode into town or went out to the pub and those types of things. And horses were coveted. I mean, when people had horses and you stole somebody's horse, that was, I mentioned this the other day in the live stream, is it was equivalent to Grand Theft Auto, and it was taken incredibly serious by the law. the law would pursue you to no end if you were stealing horses and those types of things. It was a huge crime against property. So, and the other thing was horses were messy. Road traffic was incredibly crazy with horses, and what are they called? Trying to think of the name. I'm having a brain cramp this morning. Cheviot cars, I think they're called. No, something cars. Anyway, the cars that they pull around, handsome cabs and those types of things. I mean, in this Manhattan, New York, 60,000 gallons of urine and 100,000 pounds of manure, 100,000 pounds of poop were deposited on the streets of Manhattan every day during the 19th century at the height of the horse. Just incredibly environmentally gross, to say the least. Streets were open sewers, and, London, for example, London, England, built the sewer system in the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution. And the reason that they built the sewer system in the 19th century was to try and control disease, particularly cholera. Many people had drinking water that was coming out of the Thames. They were dumping raw sewage into the Thames River. People were drinking this water and they were getting sick, particularly with cholera. And Corey says, hold up, horses, not many. Oh, Rick mentioning this actually had horses much better access to transportation these days for common folk. Absolutely, Corey, absolutely. Everybody has a motor car now. Everybody can get around, right? Not everybody had a horse and buggy in the 19th century. As I said, it was only for the very wealthy that had a horse. And, open sewage. They were building the sewage system in London, and the reason for that was to try and control disease, particularly cholera. I mean, if you haven't heard of cholera and what cholera can do to you, it's just an awful, awful way to die. If you contract cholera, commonly referred to as the black shit, you essentially dehydrate to death within about 24 hours. And it's just an awful disease. And this is what they were trying to control with the building of the sewer system in London, England, during the height of the Industrial Revolution. Incredible story, and there was a PBC series on that, the 8 industrial wonders of the world. The building of the Brooklyn Bridge, the Bell Tower, building of the sewer system in London, and part of this was trying to control some of the sewage that was running down the streets. And an interesting, funny story about that: the wealthy used to come up in their horse and carriage and go into the shop or whatnot, and there were people who lived on the streets, street urchins and those types of things. And what they would do was they would come up, and there was, manure on the streets, manure on the sidewalk, and they would come up and they would shovel a path from the wealthy person's horse and carriage, and they would shovel the manure away so that they could walk in without getting their dresses dirty or their clothes, their shoes, and manure on their shoes and those types of things. And if the wealthy people didn't tip them, guess where the manure went? So the wealthy people knew that they had to tip these street urchins, otherwise the manure ended up on them. So, Janet, I am fascinated with Percheron horses. My sister-in-law works with horses. They are massive beasts. Yes, they are. I mean, most of you probably have pets. Most of you probably have some experience with a dog and trying to train a dog, trying to control a dog. Think of a dog that's not as intelligent as a dog, as some dogs. Horses, I've heard people say that horses are not as intelligent as dogs. Think of a dog that weighs 1,200 pounds, and you're trying to control that. It's a lot of work. Eric, Clydesdales. Yes, Clydesdales are mammoth horses, but Clydesdales in the 19th century were not as common as people would like to think. There's a lot of limitations with Clydesdales. First of all, they're huge. So you have to have stables that will accommodate the size of those horses. Next, they're huge. The amount of food that they're going to eat. And if you go through the 19th centuries, they've done all kinds of studies, enormous numbers of studies on how far a horse can travel in a day, how much exercise it needs, how many calories it needs to burn. And, the other thing about horses that you may or may not know, work horses, workhorses worked 8 to 5. 8 to 5. And at 5 o'clock, as Janet just said, these massive beasts, at 5 o'clock, they were done. And at 5 o'clock, they were going to the barn, and you better be going with them. Otherwise, they were going to be dragging you to the barn, because they knew it was quitting time, and they went to the barn. And here's another myth that that Hollywood promotes is that every time you see a stagecoach and it's got a team of 6 horses out the front and they're galloping along, and they're going at full speed, that's a myth. Horses can only do that for about 20 minutes, and then they're done. They're going to the barn. So when you want a horse to work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that horse walks everywhere. Think of it like yourself trying to, horses really aren't much different than us. I mean, we can only sprint 100 meters. We can probably only do that 2 or 3 times. A horse is the same. They can only do that 2 or 3 times. If we want to work all day, we work at a slow, constant pace. And horses are exactly the same. But the difference is that, horses will not work 24/7. They 8 to 5. They're done. They're going to the barn. So, yeah. Wheelman and the horseshoes and its supernatural protection. Yes, all of that in terms of size. And so the part of the studies that they did during the 18th and 19th century with horses was how long could a horse work? How many calories did a horse require? How long could a horse run? How much space did it need? How much manure did it excrete? Those types of things. It was just enormous in numbers of studies that were done, and reading some of those statistics is just an incredible read, especially if you don't really know a lot about horses. And we all kind of grow up with Hollywood and seeing what's going on with Hollywood and those types of things. That stuff does not happen it did not happen in the real world. And most of the horses, as I said, were workhorses. Very few people in society, only the wealthy in society, had horses for personal use. And riding horses around to go to the pub and those types of things and whatnot. Ryan, my sister had been in a few crashes a few years ago, and her license got some demerit points. I'm sharing some of this video in your channel so she can be better and safer driver. Thank you, Ryan, and yeah, I hope your sister's well and she's recovering and becoming a safer, smarter driver so that she's not injured, because that's the thing about traffic crashes, is you're going to be injured. And the other interesting thing about horses and whatnot, as many of you know, most of the societies in which we lived up until the middle of the 20th century were patriarchal societies. Because of the size of horses, because it was difficult to control horses, many women did not ride horses or, partake in equestrian activities and those types of things. And this was another reason that the motor car caught on so much. And, just to clarify again, there were still similar numbers of crashes with horses as the main source of transportation. The other thing about horses is that they created all kinds of congestion. And we've had all kinds of studies in terms of European cities and other cities in the world and that type of thing, that congestion today is almost as bad as it was when the horse and carriage was dominating, the urban landscape. And going up hills, if a team of horses is pulling a load up a hill, they can't go straight up the hill most of the time, especially if the load is heavy. If they go up the hill, they have to zigzag up the hill, thus creating more congestion because they're taking up more road space within the city and whatnot. As well, like I said, you can't just leave a horse on the side of the road, go into the pub and drink for 5 or 6 hours. The horse has to be taken to a livery stable and unhooked from the wagon, which is a lot of work. Putting a team of horses into the harness assembly for the wagon, is going to take you a bit of time. And if you unhook that horse, you don't want to have to hook it back up and those types of things. So they're time intensive. Zarek Hosan, you are most welcome. Janet, have you ever seen horses at the fair, etc., that do the horse pulls versus tractor pulls? Such incredible strength. Yeah, and absolutely, Janet, there's no doubt about it that they are incredibly strong beasts. It's just something else, especially if you get those big Clydesdales and those types of things. And the other thing about that, Janet, just saying that is that the other interesting part about it is that in this day and age where they're doing those shows of strength with horses versus machines, think think of horses. Horses really aren't that different today from what professional athletes are. Professional athletes are able to do so much more because we have better nutrition information. We have better foods and those types of things. We have better rest, better massage, all of those things. And these horses too experience the benefits of all of that as well. There's better horseshoeing. There's better understanding of equestrian health, the food that they eat, nutritional value, all of those types of things. So horses, little doubt, in this day and age in the 20th century are much stronger as well than what they were in the 19th century too, because we have better foods and those types of things, nutritional information and whatnot. So the horses are a lot stronger too. You look, for example, at the the Budweiser Clydesdales, those massive, incredible beasts, right? So, Jade and Eric, I was going to the grocery store. I didn't know the roads were slippery and my dad's traction control and his truck was flashing, but I was on 41 or so. I don't want to crash. So yeah, if the roads are slippery, Jaden, sometimes it's actually better if you kick the traction control off, so it's not engaging on you and those types of things. Wheelman, my truck has 460 horses, and yes, most diesel engines in this day and age, Wheelman, are going to run, well, in North America, most of them now are running 500 horsepower plus. Some of them are even running 600 or 700 horsepower. That's a lot of horsepower in a diesel engine. There's a huge difference between 460 horsepower in a diesel engine and 460 horsepower in a gasoline engine, or a petrol engine. If you've got 460 horsepower in a gasoline engine, you got a big engine. Farron, my friend, how are you? Awesome. So, we're talking about horses. We're talking about road congestion, environmental problems, sewage, and those types of things. And interesting enough, even all of the benefits of the motor car over the horse, the fact that motor cars could be parked, they could be left indefinitely. You didn't have to saddle them up, you didn't have to feed them, you didn't have to go out and do stuff to them and those types of things. However, there was a great deal of transition to the motor car, especially in the beginning, because it was very much only wealthy people that could afford motor cars. They were expensive at the beginning of the 20th century. Most motor cars were 1,500 pounds in a time when most working class people were making 5 or 6 pounds a week. So they were very much out of reach of most people until Henry Ford came along with the Model T in 1908, and it went out of production in 1927. He really broke down the barriers, and then by the end of the First World War, there was a secondhand market that was created, which made some people could pick up an old Model T for 5 or 6 pounds, and so it made it very affordable and broke down the barriers and access to personal transportation. Jose, I already passed driving instructor written test, just waiting for my road test. I am living in Saskatoon. You're my favorite. God bless you. Thank you so much, Jose. And I believe what I read on the news this morning is that Saskatchewan has reopened, that the province is going forward, and the rest of North America is having a look at Saskatchewan to see what's going to happen in terms of the spread of COVID-19. So I'm hoping this is the beginning of the end of this lockdown, because we're still in lockdown and it's been 3 weeks. It's actually, for me, it feels longer than 3 weeks because the lockdown came on the heels of March break for me. So, we've been doing this with the kids now for almost 5 weeks. Jonathan, my friend, how are you? And Jonathan is in New York City. Jonathan, did you get your drug testing results back, Jonathan, yet? So, horse and buggy. So, one of the things that allowed more women to drive motor cars, when the motor car first came out, you have to understand that these had a crank start. So there was a crank on the front of the car, and you went out, and that's how you turned the motor over. And these crank starts lasted on some farm equipment well into the 50s and 60s before the complete adoption of the electric starter, which started the engine. And the electric starter was actually invented in 1912. It was piggybacked on the idea of the cash register drawer, which is, the cash register drawer, you ring in how much the purchase was, and then you hit the results button, and the cash register door would pop out. Well, the electric starter works on the same principle. There's a spline that pops out, connects with the motor, the engine, turns it over, the engine starts, and then that spline retracts. So that was 1912 that the electric starter was first implemented on the Chevy Cadillac. And that was the last barrier for women and people who did not have a lot of physical strength to allow them to be able to drive cars, because now it was simply an electric starter that allowed them to start the car instead of having to get out and turn the crank. And those cranks were dangerous. I've heard farm stories of people who have broken arms, got tossed in the air, turned upside down when the engine kicked back on these vehicles and whatnot. So, you know, they were not safe. They were not safe at all. Jose, Class 5 driving instructor, SGI certified. Excellent. And Jose, did you have to retake the Class 5 test there in Saskatchewan to get your instructor's license? Jonathan, no results yet. I did it 2 days ago. The samples were shipped via FedEx to wherever it is sent to be tested. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Excellent, Farron. Awesome. And Joseph, is it acceptable a good education for instructor taught driver's ed? Joseph, can you type that? Because I'm not quite following what you're asking me there, friend. Wheelman, those Hayes trucks from British Columbia, too bad they were axed. Find big rigs. Wheelman, those Hayes trucks. You know, I think they were okay in their time, but I think they were tanks. They were simply tanks. And in a time when fuel economy didn't matter, I think that they were okay. But there are some machines in the world that just really need to be axed. You know, it's like these guys with the big iron, they call it. These guys who restore tractor trailers and those types of things, and they bring in those old mechanical diesel engines. I just think it's the craziest thing in the world. I mean, we have technology. We have electronic diesel engines. I mean, my brother was talking about this the other day in terms of the automotive advances that we have now and how much horsepower is coming out of these engines and whatnot. It's just awesome. Epic. Greetings. From what I found, 2 days is the first responders have a special rate on their car insurance, meaning a deductible waived due to my mom's accident with a bus. Mere important buses. Not following that, Epic. Something about insurance for first responders. All right, we're going to leave that there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on with the traffic safety information and talk about that, kind of bring into the motor car and then go through the 20th century and how that sort of evolved. I do have a video for specific Class 5 instructor road test. Yeah, Hossein, let me work on that for you and I'll get that going for you. I'm being herded here. Okay. What are we talking about? What do you got there?
I told them that I would read a page of the gross and disgusting things on the last video.
Okay, so which one are you going to read?
This one.
Joseph, I heard of some people using a curriculum named ACE Able, and on the website there's an instructor taught program. Is this good for driver's ed? Do you know? Joseph, you already have your learners. So what you need to do, Joseph, is you just need to get in the car with a mentor, and you need to practice driving. No, don't take any more courses, okay? Get in the car, drive the car, because you need to learn how to drive the car and practice and be ready to pass your road test. So don't be looking at curriculum and those types of things. If you want to do anything, go over to my website and pick up Pass Your Road Test First Time Guaranteed. I also include the defensive driving course and the winter course as well. And the winter driving course will help you do anything in terms of inclement weather. But you need to get in the car and drive, Joseph. That's what you need to do now. Okay, so find yourself a mentor. Jose, I've had a Class 5 full license the last 5 years. Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so what are you reading? Why don't you read this one here, the boogie ball.
No, the picky picky.
You're going to read picky picky. Okay?
You've probably said beside someone who is always picking his...
Probably sat beside
his or her nose. Continue.
Caution.
Caution. Do not run your hand under the person's desk. It could be the secret hiding place where the boogers are stashed.
Compulsive
nose picking is called rhinolexomania.
Rhinolexomania.
The act of sticking a finger up the nose and pulling out a booger is called
rhinotillexis.
If you eat it, you just complete
Mocophagy.
Dad, look what Zarkos said. Kids are cute.
Okay, keep going.
Here's a shocker. Dr.
Frederick Bischinger,
an Austrian lung specialist,
I'm gonna vomit.
believes eating boogers may be
beneficial
for the human body. He
has publicly
stated that
society
should encourage nose picking. With the finger, you can get to the places you just can't reach. With a handkerchief, keeping your nose from far cleaner. And this is the page.
This is what it looks like.
Can we talk about something else?
How much more is there in that section? Let's see. Okay.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
You don't want to talk about boogers?
I want to. I want to. And then this is the second thing.
Gum hides under the desk too, Eric said. Not just boogers.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh my God. There you go. Okay, so we got that. So what else were we working on this morning? You were working on something this morning. What were you working on the computer?
I was working on Duolingo.
I was working on this Huda math thing, and it has like a whole bunch of learning games or like strategy games that you have to do. And I was doing this little restaurant game where you gotta get the food.
Thanks, Wheelman. All the best.
Get the money. Get the people to a seat. And there's only groups of 1, groups of 2, and groups of 4.
Eric says, make sure you wash your hands after picking. Jonathan says, no, just no. Yeah, no, it's not. It's gross. Okay, no, just leave it. You can talk to them. Just talk to them there, honey.
I want to go puke.
Okay, we could stop doing that too.
Ryan.
Oh,
and then this is Dear Dr. Gross.
Don't talk about it.
And this is Dear Dr. Gross.
Yeah, okay. Dragon, stop being melodramatic.
I'm going to puke, seriously.
Okay, stop.
No, my stomach hurt.
That's enough.
Seriously.
Okay, we got Rick on the GTA made a Night Industries 2000 race is known as Knight Rider race. Knight Rider, you know that's already taken, right? Jaden? Awesome. Okay, anything else? That's it? We're good?
Let's say go crazy.
What are you reading right now, Dragon? You're reading a book.
I'm reading a book. It's called The War I Finally Won.
Interesting title.
It's during the book is based on the Second World War II, and this morning we saw a nice house that me and my brother really want to get, so we're gonna use our money at Dad's house to pay for it, help him pay for it, and we're gonna do a garage sale, get some money.
All right,
sounds awesome. We're gonna sell our bed. Brian's bed is gonna be for $100. My bed is gonna be $200 because it's
we sleep
2 beds.
Yeah, and we and we sleep in Dad's room.
No, Daddy will have to pay us back.
No, he won't.
Yeah, he will. He'll have to pay us back the money that we gave him, and then we'll use our money to get new stuff like stuffies or toys.
No.
Yeah,
Dad doesn't have to pay us back.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Yes, he does.
Dad doesn't have to pay us.
We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you, Lightning for Iron, for saying that we did good. And I think we did good.
All right.
Did we do horrible? Dum, dum, dum.
Okay. How old are you, Dragon?
I'm 10.
And how old are you, Bear? What is that? How old is that?
8.
Okay.
And my favorite, mostly most people say, since I'm in grade 4, that I'm 9. Even my teacher thought that, and lots of people say that I'm lying. There's a kid in grade 5, and I'm older than her.
I was saying, yeah, you can use it. All of the information on the channel will help you with there in Saskatchewan with your instructor's ability and that sort of thing. Okay? All right, so we'll leave it there.
No, we won't. I want to continue.
No, we're going to leave
I
it there.
want to take a nap now.
Okay, we're all done.
Taking a nap.
All right,
I'm
go.
taking a nap.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Okay, same bat channel, same bat time. Have a great day, and remember, pick the best answers.
Not necessarily the right answer.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Not necessarily the right answer.